The old storyteller settled deeper into his rocking chair, gazing through half-blind eyes at the eager faces illuminated by the flicker of the campfire. A smile creased his weathered lips as he began, his voice resonating with the rhythm of legend and dust. Once, in a forgotten pocket of this land, there existed a town called Bittercreek, a sun-scorched place nestled between harsh canyons and sweeping desert valleys, where the wind whispered secrets through the cracks in the dry earth. It was the year 1889, and the folks of Bittercreek were about to witness something they'd never seen before. At the dusty heart of Bittercreek lay its modest chapel, whose faded paint peeled under a ruthless midday sun. Today, it stood in quiet expectation, as townsfolk shuffled restlessly in Sunday clothes frayed at cuffs and collars. They whispered beneath brimmed hats, trading sideways glances heavy with disbelief. Today, young Levi Quinn, a drifting cowboy whose boots had wandered through every dry arroyo west of the Rio Grande, would marry Eleanor Holloway, the town's richest widow, a woman of 71 summers. Levi stood at the chapel's rough-hewn altar, shifting his weight from one leg to another, his sun-darkened face fixed forward, eyes cast in a calm defiance. He wore his best, patched and carefully cleaned, but there was dignity in his stance. His eyes held an earnest warmth, a quiet sincerity beneath the hardened surface shaped by years of lonely wandering and sunlit labor. Eleanor Holloway, poised and dignified, entered the chapel. Her presence was as commanding as her immense ranch. Draped in somber black silk that rustled like dry prairie grass, Eleanor's silver hair was neatly pinned, her eyes alert and perceptive beneath fine-lined brows. The townsfolk watched her approach Levi, murmurs rustling among them like wind through sagebrush, each hushed voice carrying hints of suspicion. Why would a young cowboy marry a wealthy widow who could be his grandmother? Greed or loneliness, they whispered, unable to grasp a deeper truth. As the reverend began his invocation, Levi stole glances at Eleanor, observing a quiet strength beneath a solemn exterior. She met his gaze briefly, a fleeting sadness passing across her face, vanishing quickly behind a practiced mask of calm. The ceremony proceeded swiftly, each word echoing hollowly in the wooden chapel. When the reverend finally pronounced them husband and wife, Levi gently took Eleanor's frail hand into his own calloused palm. Her skin felt brittle, delicate as aged parchment. As they faced the uncertain crowd, Levi noticed Eleanor's trusted ranch foreman, Josiah Graves, leaning against the chapel doorframe. His narrowed eyes burned into Levi's own with unmistakable animosity, a silent warning that lingered even after Josiah turned and stalked away into the glaring sun. The modest reception afterward was held at Eleanor's sprawling ranch, land stretching endlessly beneath a sky so wide it seemed infinite. Yet, beneath the celebration lay an undercurrent of unease. Levi watched quietly from the edge of festivities, eyes scanning guests as ranch hands exchanged guarded whispers, awaiting their gaze when his eyes met theirs. Eleanor, ever composed, navigated the curious glances with practiced grace. Levi admired the widow's resilience, her quiet dignity cloaked in layers of mystery he couldn't yet unravel. But his curiosity deepened when Eleanor momentarily slipped away, retreating toward her private quarters with an agency ill-fitting her composed facade. Driven by an impulse he couldn't resist, Levi quietly trailed behind. Near Eleanor's study, he heard murmured, tense voices. Pausing at the door, he glimpsed through a narrow crack, Eleanor speaking to Josiah, her voice taut with restrained anger. "Enough, Josiah. What's done is done." Eleanor's voice shook slightly, a rare vulnerability in his steady tone. Josiah's reply carried barely contained threat. "You might have fooled that cowboy, Eleanor, but I know what lies beneath this ranch." Eleanor's silence hung heavy. Levi backed away slowly, his mind swirling with questions. What secrets lay beneath the surface of Eleanor Holloway's polished dignity? Why had she chosen him, a wandering cowboy whose possessions fit in a still bag? That evening, as stars blinked awake across the velvet-black horizon, Levi found Eleanor sitting quietly on the porch. The cool night air settled around them, scented by distant sage and the hint of rain from faraway clouds. Levi approached cautiously, finally taking the empty seat beside her. After a long silence, he softly broke the quiet, his voice gentle but firm. "There's something you're not telling me." Eleanor's face turned toward him, pale moonlight catching in her silver hair. Her eyes glistened with faint tears, worn by age and worry. She sighed deeply, the weight of the years audible in the sound. "Levi," she said, her voice carrying a depth of sorrow he hadn't yet heard, Sometimes we guard secrets not from mistrust, but to shield those we care about. What I've buried in my past might be your undoing." Levi leaned forward, gently grasping her frail hand once again, his grip comforting and steady. "Secrets or not, you're my wife now. Whatever you're carrying, you don't carry alone." The sincerity in his voice broke through a carefully maintained composure, and for a moment Eleanor allowed herself to lean into Levi, drawing strength from his youth, warmth, and quiet promise of loyalty. Together, they stared into the boundless darkness, the vastness of the desert stretching far beyond their sight, a land full of whispered stories, hidden truths, and battles yet to come. At the distant edge of the ranch, hidden by the shadow of a barn, Josiah Graves watched silently, eyes narrowing with cold determination. He would not let a young cowboy ruin everything he'd carefully planned. As the storyteller paused, allowing the silence around the campfire to deepen, his eyes glittered knowingly. "Of course," he murmured slowly, "every marriage begins with secrets. But some secrets are darker than the night itself, and Bittercreek's darkness was just beginning." Levi rose before dawn, the ranch lying in a silvery hush beneath the thinning darkness. Though married May days, an uneasy restlessness churned in him, fueled by unanswered questions and the troubling encounter he'd overheard between Eleanor and Josiah Graves. The ranch, sprawling outward toward distant hills, seemed wrapped in whispered secrets hidden behind each silent shadow. After quietly dressing, Levi wandered through Eleanor's stately home, drawn instinctively toward her private study. It was a room that bore Eleanor's essence, lined with antique oak shelves burdened by leather-bound books, their spines worn by generations. Dust motes danced lazily in shafts of early sunlight filtering through lace curtains, lending the space an air of forgotten melancholy. Levi's gaze drifted thoughtfully over the room until settling upon a slightly askew floorboard beneath Eleanor's warm mahogany desk. Curiosity compelled him forward, heart quickening as his fingers traced along the aged wood. Kneeling, he pried the board loose, revealing a shallow compartment beneath. Inside, yellowed letters lay bundled tightly with a frayed black ribbon, letters long buried, yet brimming with life. Heart hammering, Levi unfolded the papers carefully, eyes narrowing as he deciphered faded script. Words leaped from the page like whispering ghosts, vivid with secrets and accusations. They spoke of Silas Creed, a name Levi vaguely recognized from outlaw tales spun across frontier towns. Creed had been Eleanor's first husband, a feared bandit whose violent exploits once echoed through every canyon and creek bed across the territory. Levi's brow furrowed, drawn deeper into Eleanor's turbulent past. One letter, penned hastily and stained by tears, hinted at betrayal. "Silas's blood is on your hands, Eleanor. Secrets can't stay buried forever." A chill prickled Levi's spine. Eleanor's gentle demeanor seemed at odds with such accusations, yet here lay proof of her entanglement with shadows far darker than Levi had imagined. He carefully replaced the letters, senses heightened and pulse racing with newfound dread. Driven by this unsettling discovery, Levi saddled his horse and rode quietly toward Bittercreek Saloon, an establishment famous for loose tongues and loose immorality. By noon, the town simmered beneath relentless sunlight, heat waves shimmering above dusty main roads. Entering the dimly lit saloon, Levi felt the wary eyes of townsfolk assessing him anew. He'd become something of a curiosity, the cowboy turned heir to Holloway's riches. He settled discreetly at the worn oak bar, where barkeep Abe Johnson eyed him curiously. Abe had known Eleanor since youth and bore the weathered marks of Bittercreek's turbulent history. "What'll it be, Levi?" Abe's voice carried an edge of caution. "Answers, Abe," Levi replied softly, maintaining eye contact. "Silas Creed, what really happened?" Abe's eyes darkened, his face drawing into wary lines. "That's old trouble, boy. Leave sleeping dogs to their slumber." "I can't," Levi whispered firmly. "Not anymore." Abe hesitated, then sighed deeply, leaning in conspiratorially. Silas Creed wasn't no ordinary outlaw. He married Eleanor for her wealth, used her ranch as a refuge while terrorizing the countryside. Rumor says he was a monster at heart, ruthless and cruel. "What happened to him?" Levi pressed. "No one rightly knows," Abe murmured, glancing nervously about. "But one night, Creed just vanished. Folks whispered Eleanor ended him herself, though nothing was proven. But his men, they blamed her fiercely. They threatened her for years. Seems some never forgave her." Levi's mind raced. Abed's tale gave shape to the puzzle but left critical gaps. Why had Eleanor hidden this from him, knowing the risk it posed? Did she truly silence Creed, or was there more she kept hidden from the world? Returning to the ranch, Levi found Eleanor sitting quietly on the veranda. She watched him approach with cautious hope and suppressed anxiety in her tired eyes. "You've been digging into old wounds," she said softly, noting the tension lining his brow. "Why didn't you tell me?" Levi asked, voice steady but strained with hurt. "Did you silence Silas Creed?" Eleanor drew a sharp breath, her hands trembling slightly, betraying her carefully guarded emotions. She looked fragile, vulnerable, yet Levi sensed the formidable strength beneath her outward frailty. "Silas was a monster," she began quietly, eyes distant with painful memories. "But I wasn't strong enough to face him alone. There are truths even I struggle to carry. He threatened everything I loved, took everything but my land and pride." "Did you kill him?" Levi asked again, gentler this time, seeking understanding rather than accusation. "I wish I had," Eleanor admitted softly, her voice barely audible. "But my sin was deeper. I sold him out to the law, led the sheriff straight to his hiding spot. Creed died resisting arrest, and his men blamed me. They swore revenge. Levi. That's why Josiah Graves frightens me. He knows my vulnerability, his waited years for leverage." Levi moved toward her, placing comforting hands upon her shoulders, feeling the fragile strength within her trembling frame. "You should have trusted me sooner," he whispered gently, resolute yet comforting. "Your secrets won't change my promise to stand by you." Their quiet moment shattered as Josiah Graves appeared suddenly from around the corner of the house, face twisted into a harsh neigh. "Touching," Josiah spat contemptuously, eyes blazing coldly. "But your husband should know the whole truth, Eleanor. Tell him about the gold Creed stashed beneath this ranch, wealth you hid from everyone." Levi stiffened, pulse quickening. Eleanor's gaze turned sharply to Josiah, fear and anger warring openly on her face. "You'll never have this ranch, Josiah," Eleanor retorted, summoning steely determination. Josiah's mouth twisted cruelly, his voice dangerously low. "Careful, Eleanor. Your precious cowboy might discover your darkest secrets yet." As Josiah vanished, leaving tension crackling in the air, Eleanor turned to Levi, eyes wide with fear and desperate trust. Levi drew a deep breath, resolve crystallizing within him. "Whatever comes, Eleanor, we'll face it together." Yet as he spoke, a deeper worry gnawed at Levi's heart. How far would Josiah Graves go to claim Eleanor's secrets, and the hidden fortune beneath their feet? The storyteller paused thoughtfully, watching as the listeners leaned in closer, anticipation sharp in their faces. "Secrets," he whispered knowingly, "have a way of clawing back into daylight, and Bittercreek was soon to discover that the darkest truths lay waiting beneath its dusty earth." Levi Quinn woke in the stillness before dawn, burdened by worry heavier than the woolen blankets that draped his tired body. His thoughts twisted restlessly around Josiah Graves's words, gold buried beneath the ranch, Eleanor's hidden past, and the venomous ambition driving Josiah. Levi felt unease sink deep into his bones, a familiar sensation from the days he had left behind. Beside him, Eleanor slept fitfully. Moonlight filtered through sheer curtains, illuminating her frail figure and lending a ghostly quality to her gentle breathing. Levi watched her, noting each delicate line etched by years of concealed burdens. He wondered how much pain she quietly endured, wrapped in dignity like armor. As the first hints of day crept across the horizon, Eleanor stared. Her eyes opened slowly, catching Levi's gaze. Understanding passed silently between them. Today, truths must be confronted. "Eleanor," Levi began softly, his voice steady yet gentle. "Josiah spoke of hidden gold. Is it true?" Eleanor sat upright, gathering herself like a weary queen before her subjects. Her silvery hair caught the growing dawn, her expression determined yet tinged with regret. She took a deep breath, the sound as fragile as dried leaves rustling in autumn. Silas Creed was many things, a thief, liar, and murderer. But most of all, he was greedy. His men stole gold from miners, settlers, and traders across the territory. He buried his plunder here beneath Bittercreek soil, believing it safe within the heart of my ranch. Levi listened intently, the depth of Eleanor's revelation sending chills along his spine. Eleanor paused, her fingers nervously twisting the edge of her quilt, eyes distant with memory. I told myself that by hiding it, I could somehow redeem his crimes, use it one day to right wrongs or heal wounds, Eleanor continued, voice laced with sorrow. Yet the gold became a curse. Levi. Silas's men never stopped searching. Josiah Graves was once one of them, and he never forgave me for Silas's death. Levi felt clarity settle alongside dread. The puzzle fell swiftly into place. Josiah's simmering hostility, the whispers of betrayal, Eleanor's fearful guardedness, all rooted in greed and vengeance. Why didn't you tell anyone? Why carry this alone? Levi asked, searching her face for answers. Eleanor's gaze softened, eyes shimmering with quiet pain. Fear, Levi. Shame. And something else, a stubborn pride, perhaps. I needed the world to see strength, not weakness. Now my foolish silence has put you in harm's way. Levi reached out, gently grasping her trembling hands. His voice was resolute, tempered by quiet compassion. You don't have to face this alone. Whatever sins you think you bear, Eleanor, they don't define you. Let's end this curse together. Eleanor's weary eyes lifted, glistening with grateful relief. Yet their quiet moment shattered suddenly as urgent footsteps approached. A breathless ranch hand appeared at the doorway, panic etched into his sunburned face. Josiah's gathering men, armed and angry, he gasped, breath ragged. They are planning to seize the ranch, Miss Eleanor. They'll be here by noon. Levi's body tightened instantly, pulse racing, instincts he had buried long ago surging violently to the surface. Eleanor's face paled, but her voice remained steady, her dignity unbroken. Then we must be ready. Determinedly, Levi rose and moved swiftly through the ranch, rallying loyal hands, issuing calm instructions. They prepared the grounds, fortifying entrances, silently acknowledging the gravity of the approaching confrontation. Eleanor watched Levi closely, noting the transformation that had come over him: authority, calm control, decisive strength. She wondered at this cowboy who had walked quietly into her life, now stepping forward as protector and champion. As preparations finished, Levi retreated briefly into the solitude of the rancher's barn, gathering himself. He stood silently among hay-strewn shadows, wrestling memories he'd long buried. The days when he had been known as Quicksilver Quinn flashed vividly. Gunfights in dusty towns, the echoing pain of lives ended too soon, his own soul scarred by violence. Footsteps approached cautiously. Eleanor appeared in the barn doorway, her silhouette framed by sunlight. Her eyes sought Levi's, recognizing the shadows lurking within him. You faced this kind of storm before, she observed quietly, stepping closer. Levi's gaze was haunted, voice heavy with reluctant admission. I once carried a different name, Eleanor. Quicksilver Quinn, the fastest gun in Arizona territory. I fled that life, seeking peace and redemption. I thought that cowboy died years ago. Eleanor approached softly, placing a comforting hand on his arm. He was never dead, Levi, just waiting for a cause worthy of his strength. Levi sighed, meeting her eyes resolutely. Violence solves little. But today, perhaps it protects justice. They stepped from the barn side by side, sun climbing steadily higher in the endless sky. Outside, ranch hands stood tensely, awaiting leadership. Levi's posture shifted subtly, shoulders squared, face calm and ready. Josiah Graves comes for greed and vengeance. Levi addressed the gathered ranch hands, his voice firm and reassuring. But this ranch stands for something better. It stands for dignity, honor, and redemption. We'll protect it, not out of greed or fear, but because it's right. A quiet murmur of assent rippled through the gathered men, inspired by Levi's strength, unified by Eleanor's courage. Levi felt a profound sense of belonging, honor, and responsibility, a home he'd never fully known. In the distance, a cloud of dust rose from the winding road, Josiah Graves and his posse approaching swiftly. Levi exchanged one final glance with Eleanor, who nodded solemnly. Whatever happens, she whispered, her voice steady despite trembling fingers, remember that courage isn't found in the absence of fear, it's found in facing fear head-on. Levi nodded, eyes bright with resolve. He stepped forward, prepared to confront Bittercreek's darkest hour, ready to stand firm for justice, redemption, and the quiet dignity of the woman beside him. The storyteller paused once more, allowing the suspense to stretch taut between himself and his listeners. And so, he murmured thoughtfully, fate drew the stage for the final act, a showdown whose echoes would linger through generations, forever whispered in Bittercreek's dusty streets. Under a blazing midday sun, the dry earth around Eleanor Holloway's ranch lay silent, tense as the air before a desert storm. Levi Quinn stood tall at the heart of the dusty yard, his eyes steady, shoulders set squarely beneath the relentless heat. At his side stood Eleanor, quiet dignity radiating from her fragile frame. Around them, loyal ranch hands waited resolutely, weapons at the ready, courage etched deeply in each determined face. Across the open stretch of sun-baked land, Josiah Graves and his posse rode forward, a dark, formidable tide of greed and vengeance. They halted abruptly, horses stamping impatiently, nostrils flaring beneath sweating muzzles. Josiah dismounted smoothly, his heavy boots crunching confidently on dry gravel. He met Levi's steady gaze, lips curled into a mocking sneer. "So, Eleanor's little cowboy thinks he can protect stolen gold." Josiah's voice rang out, bitter amusement clay. "I reckon you don't know who you're dealing with, son." Levi regarded him evenly, unmoved by the provocation. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Josiah. Just another outlaw whose greed blinds him to decency." Josiah chuckled darkly, eyes glinting with malice. "Decency? You married a woman who betrayed her own husband for gold. That ain't decent, it's convenient." Eleanor's voice cut sharply through the tension, unwavering despite her fear. "I betrayed no one. Creed's greed destroyed him, Josiah, just as yours will destroy you." Josiah's expression darkened dangerously. With a slow gesture, his men fanned out, hands hovering ominously over holstered pistols. The ranch hands tensed in response, waiting for Levi's lead. Levi felt the weight of the moment settle firmly on his shoulders, memories of a past he had long evaded surging vividly forward. He stepped into the clearing between both groups, heart steady, fingers relaxed, senses sharpened by the harsh clarity of imminent danger. "Josiah, you have one chance to turn away and leave this ranch in peace," Levi called, calm authority resonating in his voice. "No blood needs spilling today." Josiah spat contemptuously, his hand drifting toward the polished grip of his revolver. "Only blood I see spilling is yours, cowboy. You chose the wrong side." A tense hush settled over the ranch, seconds stretching thinly. Josiah's fingers twitched, Levi's gaze hardened, reading the subtle shift. Time slowed, each heartbeat like thunder in his ears. In a flash, Josiah's hand darted toward his weapon, but Levi was quicker. His past surged forward, honed reflexes moving in instinctive precision. He drew and fired with blinding speed, the crack of gunfire echoing sharply through the sunlit air. Josiah fell, clutching his wounded arm in disbelief, his revolver dropping uselessly into the dirt. Chaos erupted around them as Josiah's men lunged forward, but Levi's steadiness galvanized the ranch hands. Gunfire rattled fiercely, bullets slicing through the dust-choked air. Levi moved deliberately, each movement swift and purposeful, confronting attackers with quiet resolve. He disarmed two more, rendering them defenseless as their courage faltered. The remaining posse scattered hastily, their retreat marked by fading hoofbeats. Silence fell once more, broken only by the groans of wounded outlaws and the heavy breathing of exhausted ranch hands. Levi approached Josiah slowly, standing over the defeated outlaw. "It's over, Josiah," Levi stated firmly. "You came here seeking gold, but greed only brought ruin. You have your life. Take it and never return." Josiah's eyes burned hatefully, but fear overtook pride, and he scrambled to his feet, retreating with wounded dignity. Levi watched him go, breathing deeply as adrenaline subsided, replaced by quiet satisfaction tinged with somber reflection. Turning, Levi found Eleanor watching him, admiration and gratitude shining softly in her eyes. He moved toward her, meeting her gentle gaze. "You saved this ranch, Levi," Eleanor spoke softly, voice rich with emotion. "And you protected something far greater, the honor of Bittercreek." Levi shook his head gently, humility guiding his response. "We saved it, Eleanor. Courage took more forms today than my own." Their quiet exchange was broken by subdued cheers from ranch hands, their relief blossoming into quiet celebration. Levi smiled warmly, understanding the strength found in unity and trust, qualities he'd spent his life searching for. now realized here, beside Eleanor. That evening, as stars pierced the velvet black sky, Levi and Eleanor sat together on the veranda, the day's violence now fading into memory. Eleanor reached into her pocket, retrieving a small, ancient key, handing it gently to Levi. Creed's gold lies buried in a vault beneath this ranch. It has haunted me long enough, Eleanor murmured, eyes reflecting a determination born from painful lessons. Use it. Help Bittercreek heal. Let something good come from Silas's evil. Levi held the key thoughtfully, the heavy weight of responsibility resting in his palm. We'll rebuild together, Eleanor, not from greed, but from kindness and justice. Eleanor smiled softly, hope gleaming quietly in her aged eyes. Beside Levi, she saw not merely a husband, but the hero Bittercreek had long awaited, forged through trials and tempered by courage. In the quiet night, the old storyteller's voice gently returned, speaking to listeners whose eyes widened in awe, captivated by Levi and Eleanor's tale. And so, from darkness and greed rose courage and redemption. Levi Quinn, once known as Quicksilver, found his true strength, not in bullets or gold, but in loyalty, compassion, and honor. As long as Bittercreek stands, so too will the legend of the cowboy who married a widow, and the secrets that changed their lives. With those words, the storyteller leaned back slowly, letting the firelight flicker across his worn face, a satisfied smile curling at the corners of his lips. The listeners sat silently, hearts staring deeply, yearning to hear more of Bittercreek's legends, eager for the stories whispered beneath endless desert skies.